A cruel bully sets a blind veteran's hair on fire for fun. He thinks she's a helpless victim. Big mistake. This woman holds the power to destroy his family's entire empire, and she's about to use it. The Golden Leaf Cafe was a symphony of sounds and smells Elena had learned to dissect with military precision. The high-pitched hiss of the espresso machine was the baseline. The clatter of ceramic mugs was punctuation. Beneath it all, the low murmur of conversations blended with the scent of roasted coffee beans and overpriced pastries. It was 10:30 a.m. a Tuesday. At her feet, her service dog, a large German shepherd named General, lay perfectly still, a silent, steady presence in the chaos. Elena, a former army sergeant, was 80, and the years had settled heavily on her shoulders, leaving her with a gentle, hunched posture. Her thin, pure white hair was gathered into a simple, low bun at the nape of her neck. Dressed in a faded beige cardigan over a plain cotton blouse and comfortable slacks, she looked like anyone's grandmother, unassuming and frail. She was just an old woman enjoying a quiet moment before a crucial meeting. The calm was shattered by a sound she despised, the braying laughter of unearned confidence. A group of young men swaggered in, their voices loud, their cologne a chemical assault. She heard the scuff of expensive, soft-soled sneakers and the clacking of a phone being slammed on a marble table. They were a disturbance, a ripple of entitlement in an otherwise calm pond. General shifted slightly, his body tensing, but a quiet, two-fingered touch from Elena settled him instantly. She took a slow sip of her tea, a still point of quiet dignity in her frail frame. The main voice, dripping with arrogance, belonged to a young man she would later know as Kyle. "Bro, this place is dead. Let's get our coffees and bounce." As he turned, the tip of his pristine white sneaker brushed against General's tail. The dog didn't flinch, but Kyle did, recoiling as if he'd been electrocuted. "Ugh, what the hell? Get your mutt out of the way," he snapped, his voice directed at the floor near her feet. Elena didn't move. She tilted her head slightly, her kind, wrinkled face showing a quiet resolve. "He wasn't in your way. You were in his." Her voice, calm and low, seemed to enrage him. Laughter erupted from his friends. "Oh, it talks," Kyle sneered, his voice now laced with a particular brand of cruelty. "Look, lady, I don't know if you're actually blind or just pulling a scam for sympathy, but your dog needs to be on a shorter leash." He took a step closer, and Elena could smell the cloying sweetness of his vape. He nudged General with the toe of his shoe. "I said, move it." "He's a service animal," Elena stated, her tone still even, but now with an edge of cold steel. "And you will not kick him again. Apologize." The request for an apology, so simple and just, was like a spark on gasoline. For people like Kyle, being held accountable was the ultimate offense. "Apologize," he laughed, a high, unpleasant sound. "To you." He leaned in closer. His friends were filming now, she could hear the telltale electronic hum and their stifled giggles. She felt a sudden, intense shift in the air near her head, a pocket of warmth. Then came a sound that every soldier knows, a sound that precedes fire. Click. The unmistakable sound of a Zippo lighter opening, the flint will striking the steel. She smelled the sharp scent of butane. It was too close. Before her training could fully kick in, before she could even rise from her chair, she felt a searing heat at the side of her head. A horrific, sickening sizzle filled the air, followed instantly by the acrid stench of her own burning hair. A collective gasp went through the cafe. Kyle was laughing. "See? I told you I'd get a reaction," he said, his voice triumphant. "Now you really look like a freak." In that moment, the upscale cafe disappeared, and for a fraction of a second, she was back in the dust and fire of Afghanistan. But she wasn't a victim then, and she wouldn't be one now. The fire in her hair was out as quickly as it started, smothered by her own hand. The pain was a dull, angry throb on her scalp, but it was nothing compared to the cold, focused rage that settled in her core. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She didn't give him the satisfaction. Her movements remained deliberate, economical. The entire cafe was frozen in a horrified silence, the only sound the frantic, tinny laughter from Kyle's phone as his friend replayed the video. Elena's hand, steady as a surgeon's, reached for her phone on the table. "Hey, Siri," she said, her voice cutting through the silence like a diamond blade. "Call Michael Vance." The phone chimed and began to dial. Kyle scoffed, his bravado returning. "Ooh, calling for backup. Who's Michael Vance?" "Your angry boyfriend." His friend snickered. The phone connected. "This is Vance," a professional voice answered on speaker. "Michael, it's Elena," she said, her tone all business. "Cancel the 11 o'clock. I've encountered a complication." "A complication?" "Elena, what's wrong? Is everything all right?" "The secretary's office is on the other line." "I'm fine," she said, a world of meaning packed into two simple words. "The complication is at the Golden Leaf Cafe on Grand Avenue. I'll be in touch to reschedule." She ended the call. The cafe manager, a young man in a flour-dusted apron, finally scurried over, wringing his hands. "Ma'am, I'm so sorry. Kyle, you need to leave. I'm calling the police." Kyle rolled his eyes. "Relax, Kevin. It was a joke. This chick can't take a joke." He turned to leave, his friends trailing behind him like hyenas. He believed it was over. He believed he had won. He was wrong. Less than 5 minutes later, the cafe door flew open with such force it slammed against the wall. A man in his late 50s, dressed in a perfectly tailored Italian suit, burst in. His face was pale, his eyes wide with a frantic energy that commanded the room's attention. He was followed by two assistants who looked equally terrified. This was a man accustomed to control, and at that moment, he had none. He scanned the room, his gaze landing on Elena, sitting perfectly still amidst the lingering smell of burnt hair. The blood drained from his face. "Ms. Ramirez," he breathed, rushing toward her, his voice a strained whisper. Kyle, who had been halfway out the door, froze. His smug grin dissolved, replaced by a look of pure, uncomprehending confusion. "Dad? What are you doing here?" Kyle asked, his voice suddenly small. His father, Arthur Thompson, CEO of the multi-billion-dollar Apex Corporation, ignored him completely. His entire universe was focused on the frail, blind old woman in the faded cardigan. "Ms. Ramirez. Elena. My God, what happened here? We were waiting for you." The entire board, the team from the Department of Defense, they're all in the conference room. "Your approval is the final step." Kyle's jaw went slack. The color drained from his face as the pieces clicked into place with catastrophic clarity. The woman he had just assaulted, the freak whose hair he had set on fire for a laugh, wasn't a nobody. She wasn't a scammer. She was the legendary Elena Ramirez, the DoD's lead consultant on the Titan project, a $10 billion contract for advanced prosthetic and sensory-assistive technologies for wounded soldiers. A contract that Apex Corporation had spent 5 years and hundreds of millions of dollars trying to win. A contract whose fate rested entirely in the hands of the woman he had just tried to break. Arthur Thompson's world had compressed to the space between his own panicked breathing and Elena's terrifying calm. He looked from her singed hair to his son's idiotic, slack-jawed face, and a tide of cold fury washed over him. Elena still hadn't looked in his direction. Instead, she slowly turned her head toward the sound of Kyle's ragged breathing. "I heard the click of your Zippo lighter," she said, her voice devoid of emotion, a simple statement of fact. "It has a worn flint wheel, I could hear the extra friction. Then I smelled the butane. Then, I felt the heat. And then," she paused, letting the weight of the next words settle in the dead silent room, "I smelled my own hair burning. You said, now you really look like a freak. Your friend to your left was the one filming." Every word was a nail in Kyle's coffin, hammered in with chilling precision. She hadn't seen a thing, but she knew everything. Arthur finally turned on his son. The frantic panic in his eyes had been replaced by something glacial and hard. "You," he hissed, his voice dangerously low. "Do you have any idea what you've just done?" "Dad, I didn't know," Kyle stammered, shrinking back. "It was just a joke." "A joke?" Arthur roared, the sound echoing in the cafe. "You assaulted a decorated army sergeant. You attacked the one person who holds the fate of this company in her hands. You just set fire to $10 billion, you worthless, moronic child." He took a step toward Kyle, his face a mask of incandescent rage. He pulled out his own phone and jabbed a number on his screen. "Security. Get down to the Golden Leaf Cafe on Grand. Escort my son out. He is to be denied access to all family properties. Cancel his credit cards. Seize his car. Everything. Is that understood?" He didn't wait for an answer. He turned to Kyle's friends, who were frozen like statues, their phones still in their hands. "And you. Give me that phone." He snatched it from the lead crony's hand. "If one frame of this video ever sees the light of day, I will personally fund a legal team that will dismantle your father's businesses so completely they won't have enough money left to sue me for it." He then looked back at his son, his voice dropping to a venomous whisper. "I'm sending you to Anchorage. You're going to work in our fish processing plant. You'll work 16-hour shifts, and you'll learn what it means to earn a single dollar." Two grim-faced security men in suits entered the cafe and flanked Kyle, who was now openly weeping. As they led him away, a pathetic, broken figure, Arthur Thompson turned back to Elena. The rage was gone, replaced by a desperate, pleading expression. He looked like a man begging for his life. "Ms. Ramirez," he said, his voice cracking. "Elena. Please. Is there anything I can do? Anything at all to fix this?" Elena sat in silence for a long moment, letting his question hang in the air. General rested his head on her lap. Finally, she spoke, her voice as quiet and as sharp as a shard of ice. "Fix it?" she repeated. "Mr. Thompson, your son didn't just burn my hair. He showed me the character of your legacy. You ask if you can fix it. My question is the character of Apex Corporation worth a soldier's trust?" The fallout was immediate and catastrophic. Despite Arthur Thompson's threats, a snippet of the video, filmed by another patron, hit the internet that afternoon. By evening, #JusticeForElena was the #1 trending topic worldwide. Apex Corporation's stock plummeted by 30% in pre-market trading the next morning. The Department of Defense issued a terse statement announcing the Titan project contract was under immediate review. Arthur Thompson's empire was on the brink of collapse, not by a market crash, but by the flick of his son's lighter. 2 days later, Arthur Thompson held a press conference. He looked 10 years older. He didn't make excuses. He announced that his son had been completely disowned and was facing assault charges. But he went further. In a move that stunned the business world, he announced the formation of the Elena Foundation, a new, independent organization dedicated to providing employment, housing, and rehabilitation services for wounded and disabled veterans. He was personally funding it with an initial endowment of $500 million and pledging 10% of Apex Corporation's annual profits in perpetuity. The foundation's board, he announced, would be chaired by one person, Sergeant Elena Ramirez, with full, unconditional authority. It wasn't a business move, it was an act of public penance. Months passed. The world moved on, but it didn't forget. The Elena Foundation became a powerhouse for change. Apex Corporation, under the strict ethical oversight now demanded by its government contracts and its new foundation, began a slow, painful transformation. One crisp autumn afternoon, Elena stood on a stage at the grand opening of the foundation's new Veteran Center. Her thin, white hair was now cut in a very short, neat style that made her look even more venerable. The scarred patch of skin near her temple was visible, not as a mark of shame, but as a testament to her resilience. She wore a simple, dark blue dress, and although her posture remained stooped with age, her presence radiated a profound strength that had nothing to do with sight and everything to do with vision. She didn't speak of revenge or of Kyle. She spoke of purpose. "There are those who will try to make you feel small," she said, her voice resonating through the crowd of veterans and their families. "They will try to make you feel invisible, to diminish your sacrifice, to erase you. They want your silence, because your presence is a reminder of a debt they don't want to pay." She paused, letting the words sink in. "Let me be clear. Your presence is not a burden. It is an honor. Your scars are not a weakness. They are a map of your courage. And your voice, your story, it is the most powerful weapon we have. Don't ever let them silence you." The applause was thunderous. It wasn't just for her, it was for them. It was the sound of recognition, of shared strength. Later, as she walked through the new facility with General by her side, a young woman in a wheelchair, herself a veteran, stopped her. "Sarge," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "What you did, you showed us we don't have to be quiet anymore." Elena reached out and placed a hand on the young woman's shoulder. "No," she replied softly. "You showed me. You just needed the world to listen." This story wasn't about the fall of a bully. It was about the rise of a warrior in a different kind of war. It reminds us that true power isn't about wealth or status, it's the quiet, unbreakable dignity that lives inside us. It's the courage to stand your ground when the world tries to burn you down, and to not just survive the fire, but to use its light to guide others out of the dark. If this story moved you, if it reminded you of the strength of the human spirit, please, don't let its message end here. Like this video, share it with someone who needs a beacon of hope, and subscribe for more stories that matter. And in the comments below, let's show our respect for all the real-life Elenas who serve with honor, both in and out of uniform. Because their fight is our fight, and their victory is a victory for us all.